Hey guys, what is up? Quackware here. Today we are going to be talking about C++ functions. Now, functions are pretty much one of the most important programming constructs in any language, so learning how to call them, get return values from, and all the different intricacies of it in C++ is pretty important. I want to be covering the basics and might go into a more detailed tutorial about some other fun things about functions later, but for now, let's just get started. So I start out with just a simple main function, which basically the name is called main. Now this is something you have to have in every C++ project if it's basically the main entry point of where things get executed. So the format of a function usually starts out with the return value of what this function expects to return, like a data type or either built-in or something you created yourself, the name, open parentheses, and then this is the list of arguments. So these are things that are expected to be passed into this function. So in this case it's int, and it's the number of arguments passed into the program, and then it's a char star, which is the actual arguments. So let's just create a couple basic functions just to show you how it works and compile it and get things running, because that's usually how I learn things easily. So let's create two integers and let's add them. So of course we could do, int added equals first plus second, but that's too simple for us. So let's see if we can kind of abstract this idea out into a separate function, which is basically the main idea of why you want to split things up into functions. You don't want everything, your entire program in this main statement. You want things to be logically grouped together, so that you can maybe call them multiple times. You have code reuse, and things just make sense if someone else is trying to look at your code, because they don't want to look over like a 10,000 line function, because I would just like quit right away. I wouldn't want to do that. So let's create a function definition. Basically what we want to do, we want to add two numbers together and we want to return an integer. So that means our return value is int, and let's call it something. Let's just do add. And if we're expecting to add two numbers, we need to add two arguments that are both integer type, since these are ints right there. So let's do int first, int second. And let's just go ahead and also define that. So all we have to do pretty much is return. So okay, so return is basically the way that you return the value that from the function. You can either return nothing, you can return a value. If you return something other than what is defined here, the compiler will yell at you and be like, no, that's not allowed. So let's just do return first plus second. So now we have a simple function that if we do int added equals add first second, and this does exactly the same thing as that other line did, except we've abstracted it out into a different function. So now if we print this added int, we would get 43. Okay, so to show you, it can work with different types and things like that, let's create two strings. And we're going to have to do a few imports to get this to work. So let's just go ahead and include string, and let's also go ahead and include iostream, because we'll be printing some stuff out. So let's say we want to add these two strings together. So you're saying, oh no, we have to call it like add string or something. But as long as the definition of the function, whether it's the return value or the list of arguments, is different, then we can use the exact same name. So we could do something like string, the return value, we'd be returning a string, and then we would be passing in two strings. Now, if you're an experienced programmer, you'll look at this and you'll be like, oh, maybe this isn't the most efficient way to add two strings together and return it, but this is super basic, so I'm just going to stick with it. So we would want to return first plus second, just like the other one. And this can be completely different from this. It just happens to have the exact same code in there. So we would do string add string equals add first string. So the runtime is smart enough that it knows what types this first string and second string are, so it won't call this add, it'll call this add because of those strings there. So, okay, so add strings first, second, and then we could do the same thing, say if we want just to print out like an integer, print out a string. So we don't really want to return anything, so we use what's called void, which means, hey, I'm not returning any values. So don't really bother like adding a return statement. So we do print int print val, and then let's just do stdc out, and then print val, and then we could basically do the exact same thing with a string. And again, it's smart enough to know if you pass in one with a string, it's going to call this function. So let's just go ahead and show you that by adding a little bit of a little extra print statement in there. So we got that, add strings. So let's go ahead and call print on added, and we can do things like print on first, you know, whatever we want, and then print add string. Alright, so now let's go ahead and build this. Hopefully nothing fails. Excellent, run it. So you see print first printed this, which was 10, and it called this this print function. And then you could see when we print added, it was 43 because it had called this add function here. And then when we print add string, it had concatenated hello and world together. And it also had printed this printing a string because we had called this one. So if we do something like print, let's see, what's something other than a integer or a string? So if we do print true, I don't think there would be any auto conversion, or if it would call the int one, I guess we'll find out. Okay, so it'll probably just print 1, yeah, because true, false, a boolean can also be represented as an integer, 1 or 0. So I guess to make it show you how it fails, we'll just comment out this print. And now this add string, since we only have this print integer, if we try and compile, it says that, oh, it cannot convert a string to an integer because it only has this one available. So this thing, if you do have like wrong parameters or even wrong return values in your functions, it'll be caught pretty easily by the compiler. It'll know what to do, and it'll give you a warning very similar to this, which you have to debug. And it's pretty common to run into these warnings, so don't worry. Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers the basics. Also, functions are everywhere. Like you might be using like standard libraries that will also like have these functions. So functions aren't necessarily things you create yourself, but also can be you can use other, I guess, functions that are exposed to you, whether through like it's through importing some of these libraries or anything. So let's just do include standard lib.h. This will get us a toy, which is ASCII2 integer. So if we have, let's just go ahead and do this. String, oh, wrong type of string. Integer string equals 20. So we're like, oh no, like how are we supposed to convert this 20 string into an integer? Oh, we can just use this easily use built-in library. So we'll just do int val equals a toy integer string. Boom. We called this function and const char. Okay, so it doesn't take a string, so we're actually going to use another function which converts this standard string object to basically a char star, which character, and it's a character pointer, which is actually an array of characters with a null terminator at the end, which we'll cover later about pointers and things like that. So now if we actually call print on val, we couldn't actually call print on integer string, of course, because oh, this thing doesn't exist anymore. So we got to use this print. So which is why we called a toy. So once we run that, we should get 20. Cool. So that's pretty much covers the basics. I'll go into some other stuff in a lot more detail later. But for now, that's the end of the tutorial. Thank you for watching. Make sure to watch the rest of my C++ tutorials. This is Quackler signing out.